one of my favorite ways to fish out here effectively with this much cover that you can see in this zone is to fish a swim jig, especially when I'm picking a zone apart. You get a little bit of this cover in here and you can work other baits, but typically they fail. But the swim jig is designed to work in cover like this. Now this is the Fitzgerald fishing swim jig, a buddy of mine. So I'm going to tie his on and put a little 3-inch trailer on here, and we're going to get to work in here. And we're going to talk a little bit about wind, tide, and current today, and how you make all of those work together to catch fish. Look at that nice meaty hook. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take away about half of this fiber guard. I'm going to clip that away with a right down here. Yeah, I just need a little bit of it. That won't block the hook too bad. And then I'll put my trailer on. All right, I'll be right back. Love a double Palomar knot. All right, thinned out fiber guard. Got my trailer screwed on there. I'm ready to fish. You know, this environment here is not really built, you know, for 10-pound braid, 15-pound braid. When my guys are throwing spinning gear instead of casting gear, I make sure that they're throwing 30-pound braid. That way they have a lot of control. They don't get wind knots. And, you know, casting accuracy and picking lanes is much more important, especially in this environment, than casting distance. It's about being able to work your bait clean right up to the fish. And believe it or not, things have become more challenging here in Louisiana. It's not like you can just throw willy-nilly in almost any direction and catch a fish. These fish expect the bait to come. They're going to be turned. I'm going to be coming up their 6 today because all of this stuff is moving this direction. So they're all going to be facing into that tide. So then when I make a presentation in front of them and pull it to them, that's the anticipated direction. Now, if they're turned the opposite way because I'm just using the wind to help me and not the current, well, then I'm going to be coming up their, basically coming up their tail. And that's not natural. That will spook them. So that's why I always work into the tide. Plus, I have a lot of control. When I hook a fish, I can stop my move trolling motor, fall back away from the zone that's holding the fish instead of blowing down into them. There's a lot of reasons why you do things. By using the friction of the current, I have a lot more boat control. I can work slower, more methodical, take my time and pick apart the lanes here and just simply catch more fish. There's a redfish right here with this black drum. Boy, he jumped that bait quick. Lots of times they'll travel with other fish when they're looking to eat. This rod really just stops them, honestly. It's about not letting them get into this grass. See, some of my clients are proficient at throwing casting gear where you can use heavier rods, heavier braid, and you can keep them from running in the widgeon grass and in the hydrilla, which are wiry grasses that sometimes will cost you a fish, open up a hook. So I personally prefer casting gear in these scenarios. Plus, you just have a lot better casting accuracy in close quarters. All right, let me see if I can get this guy in here. Open up my bail here, open up my push button. Grab some braid here. Get him up here. And he's got that Fitzgerald jig buried in his face. All right. Let me get him free. Jig's out. I don't like to keep these out too long, so pretty fish. Gorgeous, gorgeous fish. These fish are just one of a kind here. Their bodies are built, you know, just a little bit different than Florida redfish. That's why I love bringing friends, family, and clients here. Let's let him get going again. Off he goes. Let's talk about something here a minute before we get on to the business of fishing again. Okay, so I talked earlier when we came up into this pond, this edge, about presenting the bait naturally in the anticipated direction with the grain of flow. That's what predators expect. That's why you do it. That way you're not coming up their tail. You're coming into them as it's swimming by. They know it's coming. They're sitting in a position looking to feed that way, whether they're resting or they're traveling that way, looking for something up ahead. The other advantage is the way water flows, it's like the wind itself. You know how you can hear something that is upwind of you because the wind helps carry that sound? The same thing happens in the water with current. If you're coming down with the current because you're trying to keep the wind from, behind you and make it easier for you to cast, what you're doing is now that fish ahead of you will know the shadow of your boat, the sounds that your boat is making, because it can see it, hear it, feel it as it travels to them. That's why you want to make sure you move into the current or you're off to the side. That way you're coming from behind the fish between his 7 and his 5. He doesn't really feel you on his lateral line. He can't see you. He can't hear you. Always, if there's any appreciable wind, always move your boat into tide, into current, and you'll catch more. I've got more for you, but let's go back up here and catch another fish, because I just saw a tail come out of the water and I want to see if I can get him. All right, if you're interested in what I'm using today, this is the FlatsClass Inshore series. This is my 7'4". It's by Fitzgerald rods. 7'4" medium heavy, 3/8 to 1 ounce, 12 to 25 pound rod. It's my Swiss Army knife. It just does everything well for me. I throw a lot of lures that are in that 3/8 to like 5/8 weight range, so I use this quite a bit. 7'4" gives me plenty of casting distance. In most cases, I can outcast people with a spinning rod with this setup. But it's more for accuracy than everything else. I paired it with the Salty Hundo 150. This is a ICAST release. It's the perfect size to complement the Hundo, which is their 100 size, which is more of an 80, honestly, with a 100 size spool. This has been a fantastic setup, though. This 150 allows me to throw heavier braids, allows me to throw fluorocarbon. I've been using it extensively. I'm out here all summer long. This is 40-pound Diamond Generation 3, which is perfect for out here where I can cut through vegetation. It's a tough line. The green is perfect for here, and you can see I have no leader. There's no sense in using leader out here with this much vegetation. The knot would just create where I connect it. No matter what I use, it just create a weak spot or a algae catcher. And I use a direct connect double Palomar to the jig, and I put a lot of heat on that last fish, and there's no straightening out a Fitzgerald hook. Look at the size of that gar right there. Look, here's another type of grass. This is eel grass. There's just grass everywhere in here, so you need to understand how the fish work in this stuff, and you need to bring, well, I call this a weapon, but you need to bring a stick that can control the fish in this environment. If you're throwing, a spinning rod, if it's not a 7-foot spinning rod that's medium heavy with a fast tip, Fitzgerald makes a 7.2 that's kind of ideal for this. We use 30-pound on it. We use 4,000 size reels, and it's great. There's a nice black drum right here at the end of my fishing rod. I'm trying to run my power pole move at the slowest settings. You know, with a skiff you can move around. That looks like a red right there. I can barely make them out. Oh yeah, baby. You can just bring them. If you make a good cast here and you get it close to them, you just catch them. Let me turn off my trolling motor. Put down my sticks. Another, you know, these are typical reds here. You know, most of the reds I've been catching all summer have been in that 24 to 30 inch range. We've had a couple of big boys. I just had Carlos de Cepidus on board, and he, in his couple of days here, he had a 41 and a 44, which I'll put in this video so you can see what the potential is. But again, swim jig, such a good tool here. Quick to it. You got a big beefy hook, and if you make a cast close enough, that fiber guard does an incredible job of blocking that hook. You can throw it in almost any cover. Again, almost a mirror image of the fish before. This one's a little smaller, but solid. These fish are beautiful here. Let's get them back in. It's summer. I don't like to keep them out too long. And yeah, let's sit down for a second and talk again about how you can really maximize your effort by understanding current. That one there wanted to change the name of my jig. He hit it pretty hard. The other thing about working your bait with the grain, with the current, is that you can maintain depth. So your bait can make bottom contact a lot easier. If you've got a current and you're reeling against the grain, against the current, what happens is that bait, especially lighter baits, like if you're using spinning gear, it gets up higher in the water column. It kind of planes up. So your bait's moving this way, tide's moving this way, so it naturally lifts it. And especially if you're rolling a spinning rod that picks up more line, it's going to do that. So it's going to lift it up higher in the water column. If you're fishing 3-4 foot of water in some of these deeper channels, you're not even in the strike zone anymore. You're totally out of it. So consider that. Now, I do know there probably are conditions where you have heavy wind, 15 to 20 miles an hour, and you're trying to fish. Now, many of you wouldn't even consider fishing in those type of conditions. But if you do, then you've got to make some concessions. But on a typical day with appreciable wind, 5 to 12 miles an hour, and those are the days we usually choose to fish, don't worry about the wind. Fish with the current. That's where the fish are expecting to see the lure come through. Don't surprise them by coming up behind them with the lure. It's okay for you to come up from behind them by throwing. And if you think it's giving you a disadvantage with some casting distance, just up the weight of your lure. That's it. Don't do something that's not going to work, and then you're frustrated all the time with grass on your bait because you're going against the grain. You're picking up more grass, especially on the surface. Even surface grass, if you're coming with it, you don't foul as much. So current, very important. All right, I'll be back with another quick tip here in a minute, but let's catch another fish. The little bit of wind that I have and the tide are working in the same direction. So you see all this little duckweed in here coming this way. You see all the grass laid over this way. And that, even with the surface, material on the water, if I'm coming in the same direction as the surface material, you don't get as much on your jig here. You find ways to beat it. Now, if I went against it, I would pick up a lot more of this, well, for lack of a better description, vegetable matter on my jig. So that's another important reason why you need to work with the grain. Think about where you're casting, what lane you're fishing, where the fish are set up, and then work your boat quietly in there. I do this in every estuary I go to. I grew up in the Tampa Bay estuary. I know it works there because those fish are pressured. But fish a lot of the Big Bend, fish a lot of the Nature Coast. I was a traveling tournament professional for 13 years. I've been a professional guide for over, 2.5 decades. So I feel like I've got some really good perspective when I'm talking about how this should be done to improve your productivity. I know there's life here. I'm seeing black drum. I'm seeing all the species that complement redfish. Black drum, sheep's head, stingrays. You see those types of fish, they're all dining off the same menu. And then because the current is coming this way, they don't hear me. It's harder for them to hear me. I can get closer and closer. That's why so many of these fish I'm catching are so close to the boat. They don't know I'm coming. I mean, yes, this is a Hell's Bay skiff. Yes, this is a move trolling motor. And yes, I preach all the time on how stealthy they are, and they give me a significant advantage. But the real advantage is knowing how to leverage these pieces of equipment to give you that extra 20, 30 feet to get closer and make the presentation properly and catch more fish. There's one right there. He was headed up my way. I'm going to just get on the other side of him. I came up in this drain. I could see the water coming out. I looked back and there was one sitting right in it. You see how they wrap up in those plants? This is why you can't use 10-pound braid in here. You get ultimate control when you have them on a strong leash. It's like walking a pit bull around. Would you walk a pit bull around on the same leash that you'd walk a poodle? A little miniature poodle? No. Get out here out of this grass for a second. Put down my sticks. You got to use the right tools for the job. Now, I'm going to talk to you guys about a spinning rod setup that will work. Because a lot of you are going to say, hey, I'm not as proficient with casting gear as you, and I want to be able to do this, and I'm going to tell you right now, you owe it to yourself, if this is your passion, to get better at it. This fish here is over 27, I can tell just by handling him. You owe it to yourself to get better at it and practice more. But if you do want to use, come on, that is a strong jig. If you do want to use, whoa, well, see you later, alligator. If you do want to use a spinning rod, let me break one out and show you what I would use in this environment when you've got this type of stuff. So let's talk about that now. Let me sit down and grab one of those rods out for you. All right, here's a setup that I have for clients, family, friends, whatever we're going to call them, to fish with while they're out here. This is a 7'2" medium heavy, and I'll try and show you the tip action. See how it just bends in that tip? And that's it. That's what you're going to need. 7'2", that gives you proper casting accuracy. If you've got a 7-foot medium heavy, it'll work just as well. You want something that's got some stiffness, some backbone, some quickness. You need to be able to work baits like this one here. This is a goat. This is rigged on a 5/0 Chinlocks hook. These hooks are tough. I mean, heavy gauge wire. You need to bust them through that plastic. And many times I'll rig this goat where the bait is completely weedless. So it's buried in the bait itself. Because Elastec is so soft, this TPE material, it pops right through. So I can have them throw it up in this cheese, this lily pad field, and they can work it over the clear spots and catch fish. And with this size reel, this is a 4000 Shimano Twin Power with 30-pound braid on it. No leader, double Palomard right to this hook, and it works great. If you want to give yourself a little easier time, if you've got someone who doesn't make a good hard hook set, take your pliers and mash that barb down on this. Mash it down, because if they keep the tip active, this will go through and you will not lose a fish. There's a lot of bite in that hook. There's a ton of bite in that hook. So just mash that barb down, okay? And it'll come through the plastic or the Elastec a lot cleaner. And this setup has worked fantastic. In fact, you know, the top 10 fish out here, a lot of them have been caught on the goat or the Z-Man kicker crab. So you can't, you know, you can't discount power. You need power when you're fishing this type of stuff. Think of it as, I'm fishing a dock. I'm fishing a mangrove shoreline. I'm fishing in a marsh zone that has a series of oyster bars and things like that. I don't worry about oyster bars out here because there are none. There's not one oyster bar I've ever run into out here. Not in this part of Louisiana for sure. Glass is the cover that you're looking for. But that's the kind of stuff that's going to, the type of equipment I should say, that is going to bring success to you out here. But a lot of my clients out here throw casting gear, and it's because they don't have to make those bomb casts. If we come up behind these fish moving into the tide, we can get really close to make nice, short, perfect, accurate casts and catch them. You can learn more if you go to FlatsClassUniversity.com, where I have a lot more time to drill down into these subjects and make you a better inshore angler. But before you do that, let's go catch one more today and talk a little bit. Anytime I throw a swim jig, I mean every time I throw a swim jig, some people say, well, do you use a craw trailer? Do you use the crab or anything like that? Do you use a straight tail like you do with your chatterbaits? I don't. I almost always use a swim tail trailer. Swim jigging is just, it's a search bait. It's a way to find fish. Some of you will probably comment below, do you ever use it in Florida? And the answer is yes. I use it extensively, especially when I'm north of Crystal River, fishing the Big Bend area. I use swim jigs a ton. They will work almost anywhere. Charlotte Harbor, I've used them. They work just about everywhere. All right, you can see the drain up there. You know the water's flowing this way. Water's low enough right now where the canes are blocking some of the wind, so I don't got that to worry about because I'm in a corner right now instead of out in the open. So I'm going to look in this riffle as the water travels this way and look for a red that's looking for something to come out of that bayou over there. So let's get back after it. He's right here. See this drum? This one's probably going to tail too. See how his tail's coming just out of the water? He's in this eelgrass. It's pretty cool to watch them feed, you know, and he's just down there eating snails, crabs. He has no idea I'm here because I'm coming from down current. He's going to bump my trolling motor. Now he knows. All right, come on, dude. You know, if you're not going to drive any faster than that, then I'm going to have to pass you. Jeez, traffic jams. He's going to stay right there. Here's another one coming in right here. The black drummer using this drain here to feed, for sure. I feel like I need to catch you just to wise you up. Ridiculous. Come on, out of the way. Can't tell. That's a redfish right there. God, dog it. I just couldn't get tight on him fast enough. That was my bad. My bad. Doggone it. Came all the way up here in the drain to look for one and found one, and that happened. That's on me. That's angler error. You have it on record now. I do not catch every one. There's a redfish at the end of my rod. He's going away from me now. Pretty good redfish. Yeah, we're going to end on this bad boy here. This one got attitude, probably one of my better fish this morning. And it's only 10 after 10. I've only been out here. Well, it took me 30 minutes to get here. I didn't launch until about 7:50, so I haven't even been fishing 2 hours. But with all this grass around, I'm able to control him because of the right equipment and understanding how these fish move in this tide. Good Lord, this is what we call a pumpkin. So, you know, the grass, when they're in these ponds for a long period of time, their fins turn orange. Even their belly gets orange. It's not the typical white you see everywhere else. You know how redfish in a lot of estuaries, they have that delineation. Let me get them in here. I'm only wrapping this braid on me because I've got gloves on. But when you look, you see how that orange goes through all of their fins? I mean, it's beautiful. And instead of having that line right here where my thumb is, he doesn't have it. So he's been in this pond a long time. Man, he wasn't letting go of that. Oh, might have to pull my pliers out for that one. All right, this one jigs out. All right, I'm gonna let this bad boy go. He's gave me a heck of a run for the money. Whoa. They're beautiful in here. They really are. I feel blessed to be someone that's been able to fish out here, especially as an out-of-state guide for so long, and practice the catch and release naturally. All right, let's talk about one more thing and we're done. All right, I will tell you this. You know, we're wrapping up now. One of the important things about fishing your lure with the grain is to maintain line tension. You see me do that constantly. I make the cast, I bring the bait toward the fish where I want to come right here, his cone of awareness, right here, and I try to keep that bait swimming. It's very easy when you're working with current to create slack line if you're not paying attention. So I'm trying to pick that line up at a nice even pace so I always have that sensitivity, that bite detection, and I'm watching my line as well. Those are some of the critical factors to being able to work a jig. So if you're going to work a bait, whether you're Texas rigging it on spinning gear or you're working an open hook jig like I am with a fiber guard, you want to make sure a couple of things are happening. You want to work with the grain. You want to maintain line tension. You understand that your bait is going to be cleaner because you are working with the surface coming at you. And you understand that the fish's head is in the tide waiting for something to come from that direction. All of these things are important. What's important to me is that you guys enjoy this video, you give me a thumbs up, and hopefully some of you will smash that subscribe button and be back here tomorrow for another great video. Because my job is to help teach you to be a better inshore angler. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave down in the comments some of your tips and tricks that you've used over the years to catch fish. I'd love to answer some of the questions. Until next time.